Imagine you're on a bridge of hope and you're crossing a wide river. You get to the middle and suddenly the bridge is gone. The huge distance remains to the other side of the water. And it's dark. It's night. You cannot see what's happened. Where's the bridge? That is despair. And what if you're a poor person and you go to school because you don't want to be poor anymore? You want to get a degree, a profession, something that can support your family with dignity, not with luxury, simple human dignity, to work an honest day, get an honest wage, and pay for what you need. And so you go to school and you get your degree. You graduate, you get a job, you find someone and you get married, and you find out that the money you're making is not enough. It won't get you to the other side. This is the disparity. That we live in a realm where honest people cannot make an honest living. It's an interesting thing because in the Bible, we always go back there, it's our reference point. We have the famous cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And in Sodom and Gomorrah, they were known to be the most immoral people. So when we hear the word immoral, everybody's imagination goes where it goes. The sages teach us that their real sin was they forbade charity. They forbade charity. If you came into town, remember a walled city 3,000 years ago, actually it was a little more, about 3,700. You lived in a walled city. If you were not in the city at night, you were in danger. And you enter the city and you see a beggar, you try to give him a coin, you've committed a crime. When they enacted laws against charity, that was the beginning of their true destruction. And they were considered the wealthiest communities, the wealthiest cities of the time. Our Midrash teaches that you could go out in Sodom and Gomorrah and rake the field with a rake, and gold would turn up in the soil. You didn't have to dig a deep mine to find gold, to find money. Money was super abundant. They were very wealthy people that lived at a very high standard for the ancient world. Why would they outlaw charity? You would think that charity would be a natural result of being wealthy. But no. The wealth caused what Rabbi Nachman calls a birei lev, the hardness in the heart. Literally, a bir is a knight, a warrior. It's when the heart goes to war. Because when you have a lot of money, you have a lot of friends. King David said that. King Solomon said, Mosif hon, Mosif haver, haverim. That you add wealth and you add friends. Those fair weather friends, they seem to have a nose for who has the money. Who wants friends like those? Do you? Are you willing to pay to have people around you? Or maybe I should learn to be alone. But either way, so Sodom and Gomorrah serves an example for us about wealth. That you can be very wealthy and still have great disparity, so much so that you don't want to give to the poor. And what happens spiritually is when a culture doesn't give, it loses its merit and it implodes. It engages justice and judgment so much that God, well, in the ancient situation, it says they rained fire and brimstone. Everybody knows the story. But despair is when you have hope for something good and it's taken away. And disparity is when there is an uneven distribution of wealth. Now, I'm not the first person to talk about that. Communism was built, founded, inspired by the disparity of the wealth between the Tsar Nicholas and his family and the Russian peasants, of which many were Jews. Disparity inspires rebellion and revolution. And we saw this in the Russian Revolution, we saw it in the French Revolution, we've seen it, there was Spanish Revolution, I'm sure there are many more. It's always disparity. People are interested in fairness and judgment. If a person inherits wealth, it must be from God. We accept that. If a person works hard and makes a lot of money, we accept that too. But what's not acceptable is the hoarding of wealth, the monopolizing of economies, the sanctions against the middle class and the poor that keep them in the middle class and keep them poor. And I've heard modern economists and read about economists that said this kind of philosophy was not unusual in the capitalist system and the what we call the imperial system, which is basically kings and queens. Because people, when they get wealth, they get afraid of losing the wealth because they like it so much. You know, can you imagine you fall in love with somebody and they love you and you get married. And all of a sudden, you notice that your wife is very beautiful and everybody's looking at her. What happens? You get tight, you get tense, you get vigilant, you start looking over her, you get jealous, you watch other people's eyes wherever you go. Is that the point of wealth? That you start to get guarded of your wealth? Not only guarded, looking for ways to avoid taking the position of a wealthy person in society, a position of honor, to be a master of charity. Now, there are people, of course, that are philanthropists because they've made a lot of money, but apparently the disparity is just growing and growing. The middle class has been eaten up in America for the last 40 years, maybe more. And I'm sure in other continents it's the same. But the despair that comes from disparity leads to revolution and rebellion and violence, which of course only creates more destruction in a society, more separation between the leaders of a society and its people. And when you see the loss, the erosion of faith in your leaders, in your it's a little early, judicial system, when that erosion happens, what comes next? When the disparity becomes so great and there's no faith in the leaders, why should I follow the leaders? And then you have people that stand up and say, let's try something different. Now, I'm not for or against revolution, because certain places revolution is absolutely necessary for change and transformation, for spreading the wealth in a proper way. But in a society where there is suppression and oppression, well, then we know what happens. That murder follows murder, and violence becomes justified by the governments, and the disparity becomes even greater. So when people call me and ask about their life, their future, Jewish people mostly, but also non-Jews, and they want to know about Israel, I say, well, Israel's a country like any other country, except it's not. Because Israel understands the importance of charity, the importance of giving. And even if we're not perfect, which we're not, we do have a law above human law, a law that was used to create society, a law that was used to sustain and build and make a society flourish. And we have our examples of that in the past as well. Of course, the societies of King Solomon, King David, and their sons and grandsons. They're very healthy, wealthy societies, of course, until they started to serve the idols. What does it mean to serve the idols? It means to make to make money the point. Money is not the point. The point is what you do with it. It's the charity. And it's each person depending on how much he makes. We all have to check it out, 10%, they say, will guard your wealth. 20%, they say, will make you wealthy. So I bless all of you this new year, this period of the month of Tishrei, the period of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and the upcoming festival of Sukkot and Simchat Torah. This is the renewal of the year, and it's the new renewal of wealth, and the renewal of kindness, opening our homes to the strangers, to the people who don't have homes, to the people who don't have a meal, to the people who you might not even look at in the street. But this is how Abraham built Judaism. The first mitzvah, the first societal mitzvah is open your house. And when you open your house, you invite a whole new world into your living room. And you know what? Your kids notice, and they appreciate a new world because they're bored with their parents, mostly. Even a guy like me, right? They love guests. They love new worlds. They love to hear new stories from different places. And that comes from opening your house. And opening your house is the mitzvah of charity. Because you're giving not only food and drink and maybe money, but you're also giving atmosphere, energy, positivity, a sense of belonging, a sense of community and culture. God should bless us all with these things. We should all see an imminent redemption, not a revolution, a transformation. Big difference. But that's for another time. God bless you all. Hag Sameach.